Hi everyone, just me again. Back today with another Transformers video, and today what I want to talk about is the Shattered Glass storyline and something that I want to see come into existence, the Beast Wars Shattered Glass continuality. I bring this up because I was personally thinking about it recently, having read the Shattered Glass storyline, and I was just thinking I'd also rewatched some Beast Wars recently, and it just kind of clicked in my head that I was very much wanting to see the Shattered Glass Beast Wars series come into existence. And so, just a quick explanation what Shattered Glass is. Um, Shattered Glass is a series of comics, and it's a new comic series that's come out recently. It's set in a mirror universe where the Autobots are actually the bad guys and the Decepticons are the good guys. Usually I'm not a fan of the whole mirror universe idea, because usually it's done quite poorly, or it just seems a bit too much of a fan gratuitous thing. Rather than developing some new characters, some new storylines and such, it rather just takes the old storylines and the characters and just swaps around as you'd imagine they would be if they were evil or they were good. And it's usually done quite poorly. But actually, I was reading the Shattered Glass stuff for the Transformers, and I was actually quite enjoying seeing the kind of topsy-turviness going on. And they weren't strictly following the events that were happening in the original series, they'd done it completely different. So I was then thinking about Beast Wars and how they would do it. I know, I saw today as well, there was an announcement a while back that there will be a Shattered Glass Beast Wars thing done anyway. Um, but what's happening is it's actually a continuation of the current Shattered Glass series. So it's the Autobots, some of the Autobots crash landing on a planet, adopting forms on that planet, but they're evil. So the evil version of the Maximals, which I'll go into in a minute. So it's a continuation. Beast Wars as a series, though, was the kind of sequel to the original G1 series of Transformers. Beast Wars was a sequel featuring the descendants of the Autobots and Decepticons, the Maximals and Predacons, respectively, with some familiar names, but those familiar names were just names in person. They were not the actual characters from the first original. It was, anyway, it had the backstory, but it was a complete different series by itself, and it focused heavily on individual characterization rather than the huge armies that had in the Autobots and Decepticons. And what I wanted to see was the Beast Wars that were done in a Shattered Glass version rather than the continuation that's going to be happening. I wanted to see, because we had an example, Rhinox turning into a Predacon in the one Beast Wars episode, and he was mental. He was really, it was almost like we were seeing a whole different character altogether. Someone in Rhinox's skin, but completely different character, and I wanted to see that. Just to give it some examples of what I think the changed personalities would be. Optimus Prime is noble and trying to do his best in the original. I'd imagine that he would be very much a tyrant in the Shattered Glass continuality, a very much iron-fisted. He won't let the Predacons get away with a lot of things that Megatron let them get away with. If the amount of times the guy was betrayed by his Predacon subordinates and he didn't scrap them, despite the fact he kept threatening to, just shows that he was too lenient. I mean, for an evil tyrant leader, he was pretty laid back when it came to subordinates. But I remember he mentioned in one of the very last episodes, actually, when he turned into a giant dragon. Yeah, you can go and watch it to see the context that was in. But he said you could tolerate the one Predacon's treachery. Maybe it was Tarantulas, but you couldn't tolerate his what was it? Not inability. It was just his, the fact that he failed. He couldn't tolerate the fact that the Predacon failed. But anyway, I imagine Optimus would be a lot more iron-fisted than what Megatron would be. I'd imagine that Rat Trap would be more of a coward and more sneaky. Cheetor would be quite arrogant. He was quite confident in a maximal form, but I'd imagine he'd be very arrogant here. And Dinobot would be dishonorable. And he would, if you imagine that the so in the Shattered Glass continuality, probably the Maximals would be lording over the Predacons having won the Great War, and the Predacons in this version would be kind of like rebel freedom fighters, and they were being chased by the Maximals to stop them, and Dinobot had been thrown out of the Predacons for being too dishonest. His honourable nature turned around. And speaking of honourable, I'd imagine this version of Megatron would be quite honourable. He would stick to his word. He didn't in the original. He was very sneaky, very underhanded, but this one would be like almost like Shining Knight in armor sort of thing. And speaking of which, his subordinate the Pterosaur, or who was quite underhanded and sneaky and looking out for himself in the original, he would probably be quite similar in that Shining Knight version that Megatron was, perhaps quite honest, perhaps even a bit gullible. Probably they'd keep Waspinator though as being always scrapped, but he would be seen as kind of the always lucky guy sort of thing. And the other ones, so you got Tarantulas, who would probably end up being quite the pacifist, quite caring for his fellow Predacons, and probably their medic, to be honest. And the last one, Scorponok, yes, the dependable right-hand man, much more intelligent probably than the original version was, and who could always be relied on to do things. So that's just my thoughts of what probably the characters would be like if there was a Shattered Glass version of Beast Wars from the original Beast Wars rather than this continuation they're doing. And we honestly have to see. I mean, the fact that they've turned... I've seen a picture of Ultra Magnus turned into Ultra Mammoth, a big bloody blue mammoth. I was just laughing my head off because it looks so... It's, you know, he looks tough, he looks fierce, but it looks so corny at the same time. But I'm wondering whether he's going to be a bit of a fan favourite, to be honest, when it comes to the toys, which they will originally make, because the ability to have a bright blue transforming mammoth will probably be quite the little collector's item. So anyway, that's my little thoughts on Transformers Beast Wars Shattered Glass. If you've got any thoughts on it, perhaps you want me to do a follow-up where I look at the other characters that come along, and what I think Black Arachnia would be like, what I think Silverbolt and all the rest of them would be like, the other Transformers afterwards, then let me know. Alright, see you soon.